Hey, everybody. It's Monday, December 2nd, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and we are live on YouTube again. I am going to bring in this guy from SoCal, I like to call it, Mr. Dwight Broman. How you doing, Dwight? And you're muted.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Greg.
So you don't have the cold weather we have. You know, uh, what's the weather like down there?
I think I was mid 70s today,
Oh, must
Fahrenheit.
be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
I would
lucky.
I would take that all year long.
Yeah.
Never mind the hot temperatures, but no, good to see you. And now we're going to bring in Mr. Dave Podner. Hello, David.
Hey Greg, how's it going tonight?
Oh, not bad. You have the cooler temperatures like I do, but you don't have the snow yet.
No, we are dry. We are dry.
Yeah,
We had light flurries,
yeah.
nothing to impact travel luckily yet.
Well, we got a few inches of snow here. It's okay though because it's December, and last year we had it on Halloween night, and that was a little too much. Mind you, it went away the next day, but it was just way too early. But anyway, enough about the weather. We are going to talk about the iPhone 16 Pro Max because that's what we all have now. And we thought we'd kind of see how we think of them now that Dave, you've had yours for a couple of weeks or so,
Mm-hmm.
had a little more time to talk about it or to get used to it and play around with it, and see what see what we all think of it, what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and all this stuff. So I think what we'll talk about first is maybe we'll talk about what we don't like, so that hopefully we can end this all on a bit of a positive. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I got a few notes here that I put down because I know if I didn't, I would forget some stuff. Um, so I'm gonna go first with a point. Well, a couple of points real quick here about what I don't like about it, and what I don't like about it is the price here in Canada for these things. Um, they set the price for whatever it is in the US, and then they set it for, I guess they've tried to make an adjustment for the exchange and all that stuff. But I looked at the exchange rate for what I paid for it and then what that would be in US dollars, and it's like $100 and some more than what it should be if you did the exchange rate, to what it is nowadays. And it hasn't fluctuated that much since this came out on September 20th, I think it was. So, that's one of the things that kind of bugs me about Apple is I think if they're going to set a price, they should set the price in US dollars and then just play the bloody exchange for your country or where you're living at the time that you purchase it. If you purchase it when the exchange is high, okay, too bad. If you purchase it when the exchange is lower, then fine. They're still getting their money. That's how I look at it anyway. Maybe I'm, just blowing a bit of steam here, but I think that's the fair thing to do. But in any case, and it's like that with everything from Apple. They set a price and then they try to make an adjustment for the country for an exchange rate. And I mean, it's probably all over the map. But anyway, so what do you guys think? That would be one of my biggest gripes about the phone. But then that kind of, like I say, that kind of extends into the Apple stuff altogether. But Dwight, what do you think? Have you got anything that you really don't like about the iPhone 16 Pro Max?
Yeah, I'll have to side with Todd in the chat. I'm not a fan of the camera control. I've given it a college try, and I find that the camera just moves too much. I find that it's clunky. I have a specific way that I take the photos using my thumb directly on the screen where I get the most stability. So to me, right now, that's I haven't given it really a fair shot, maybe, but I've kind of given up on it after a few tries and just gone back to the standard way of shooting. I feel like I have more control just basically right off the screen of the iPhone. So that's the one thing that for me is probably the most disappointing new aspect of it.
I would have to agree. Like when it first came out, I thought, okay, I'm going to give this camera control a good hearty try. I still do use it, but not all the time. I like you. I think it's more you get more stability when you just tap the screen with your thumb. I've never used the volume shutter because it just shakes too much. And I know with camera control, it doesn't take the picture till you release it, but you're still gonna have that little bit of shake. Have you found that, Dave, with yours?
I haven't used camera control in that way that much, to be honest. The way I'm using it mainly to bring up the camera. So that way, when I pull out my phone, I don't have to say, okay, I'm on the third screen, or I want to unlock, or I have to slide. I just pick it up, hit the button, and then I'll hold it and I'll use the screen like normal. I've tried using the camera control to hold down on it, and like you guys say, it just doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it. It doesn't do as well, but you know, like I said, for me, it's a great way to get the camera open and open it up. Open up the default camera without having to scroll through and what folder it's in or what screen I'm on, or worrying about locking, unlocking, swiping. If I have gloves on, or if I have like a face mask on because it's cold, or I have like a scarf on, I don't have to worry about unlocking the phone or anything else. So that makes it a lot easier that way.
Doesn't the phone have to be unlocked in order for that to open the camera, though?
Nope.
Oh, okay. um, but yeah,
Also, it's a great advantage if I hand Ruth the phone.
oh right,
Like we're in the car, and I said, "Oh, hon, take a picture. Use my phone." And I said, "Just hit the button on the side, and it brings it up."
yeah,
That way, you
yeah.
don't have to unlock your phone. You still, if you want to do more than just take a picture, you have to unlock it.
It's nice to see you being fair though, because you were hogging her 8 or 15 Pro Max for a while. Well, not hogging it, but I mean, you
Yeah,
were using it, and now you can return the favor.
exactly,
But
exactly.
no, it's a, it is a handy thing that way because I mean, I think it's better than the action button if you have your action button to set to open the camera, because at least with the camera control you just press it quick and it's done. You don't have to press and hold it like the action button. I mean, I know we're talking a half a second here or whatever it is, but sometimes when you got to get that shot, it's nice to have the camera open like ASAP, right? So the another thing that I didn't like about it was the fact that it wasn't ready as announced when it came out. It didn't have any Apple Intelligence on it. Um, it didn't have any of that. We're going to have a good dose of it here shortly when 18.2 comes out. Mind you, I say all that, but I've been on the betas of iOS 18 since I would say early July. So it started with my 15 Pro Max, and then when I got this one, it loaded the beta, whatever the beta was at the time. Loaded it on right away, and I'm on the developer beta, and so I get stuff before the public beta, and so I've seen Apple Intelligence kind of evolve a little bit into what it is at this point, and some of it's okay, some of it's kind of handy, and then there's other stuff that you think, okay, this is going to be cool to try, but then you just don't play with it anymore. Like Image Playground, I hardly ever do that anymore. When it first came out, I thought, okay, let's see what it can do with a picture of me, and I thought that don't look like me at all. At least I didn't think so. And then um, now on 18.2 beta 4 is what I'm on. It has that feature where you long press the camera control and it opens up that interface where you can take a picture of like a book or a product or just a storefront if it got the hours on it, and it's that deal where you can it'll tell you more information about what you just captured a picture of, and you can do an image search, or you can ask Google, like search Google about that. You know how that'll all pan out in the end, how good it'll be, how useful it'll be. That remains to be seen. But the fact that none of that stuff was ready on release day, I was really disappointed. Um, I don't know. Do you guys, if you're on the public, like the regular public release, do you have any of that stuff at all? You probably have
Uh,
writing tools and stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we have that. I don't have any of the beta stuff on my phone. I just
Yeah.
I haven't gone down that path yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I primarily shoot in RAW, so I'm never really too anxious to get to the native camera. I've got the widgets on my home screen for, like reflex or halide. Um, but yeah, but I think that's pretty cool, that one feature that you're talking about, Greg, and I think it was in the Apple keynote for the phone, was being able to take a picture of a restaurant or a sign, and then you can get all the information you need, relative to hours and days open, and that kind of thing. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It it could be handy, you know, for some things, I'm sure, but I think it's got a ways to go yet, because I have tried taking a picture of some stuff, and it just comes up with uh, the old Siri thing where, oh, I found this on the internet or whatever. Um, you know, and I know this Apple Intelligence thing is a work in progress, but um, Dave, to me, I think you might be a guy who would use the writing tools a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, I've already done it. I like the summary feature that's available now. They're going to expand the writing tools in 18.2, but in 18.1 you do get the summary tools, and you do get where you can say, okay, well, here's a paragraph or so, give me some bullet points about it, and that's a big help. That to me is a big help. Just trying to get that general summary about what's going on that way.
Yeah,
And I really think having the more expanded writing tools where you can, type out an email and highlight and say, okay, not just spell check it, but give me some suggestions to make this concise, make this way, make it this way. You can actually, you can get a little more deeper, I think, with 18.2 versus 18.1. I think that'll help a lot of people because at least I remember in school, they always said proofread your work. And if possible, get someone else to proofread your work. And not just for spelling and basic grammar, but to make sure it flows right, to make sure that, because a lot of times when you're writing, you'll skip a word or two because it's in your head, but you forget to put it on the page. And when you're reading it back, in your head, you put it back in there. So by having these tools, I think that'll help a lot of people. I'm really curious to see how good visual intelligence will be. The push
yeah,
and hold and the camera control, because that's similar to what Google Photos can kind of do now, but it's a little different. It's not with a live view per se. It's more of you take the picture, you hit the little button in Google Photos, it scans the photo, and it can come back and say, this is the type of flower you have,
yeah.
or this is the location you're at, type thing.
And I find it interesting that they make Google the search engine. You know, and as far as I'm, like, I use DuckDuckGo as my default search engine, but in what'd you call that? Visual intelligence?
Yeah, I think they're calling it
Yeah,
visual
yeah, I
intelligence.
think
Yeah.
that's what it is. But when you're using that, Google is the only choice you have.
Oh, wow.
So, it's not like it goes with your default search engine for some reason. Um, but yeah, I think it's going to be useful. If it'll likely get better as
Oh
it
yeah.
goes too. I mean,
Yeah.
all of this stuff will likely get a little better as it goes. Um, I got one last point that I'll bring up about what we don't like, and then I'll let you guys bring up anything that you have. Um, the 30-second night mode blue line issue. Um, Now, if you haven't heard of this, or if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, go to Shane Mostyn's YouTube channel, and a few videos back from the current one, he's done some stuff about 30-second night mode shots, generally of the stars, like of the sky, the night sky. Sometimes you'll see some blue banding in the image. Now, if you remember with the iPhone 15 Pro Max or Pro, it had what was called a line gate, we called it. Down the one side of the screen, when you shot a raw image, there was a line down the side of the screen, and it was just once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it, and that's kind of the way this blue thing is. Now, it's not the same place every time with every camera like it was with the 15 Pro. It kind of moves around. Some are worse than others. Some don't have it at all. I thought I was scot-free. I thought my images didn't have it at all, but once I saw it in some of the images, you couldn't unsee it. But I'm not going to go on about it. I'm just going to say go to Shane's YouTube channel. There's a link in the show notes for his channel, and you know, look for videos that he's done. He's done one or two videos about it, about this issue with the 30-second night mode, and he will be able to um, inform you a lot more than I could about what's going on with that and all that stuff. So, because that's what his channel's all about, is night photos and shooting in the dark. Um, but that's one thing that I really don't like about this phone, and it's, in my opinion, I think it's a very widespread thing. A lot of people, if you don't shoot a 30-second night mode shot, you're not going to see it. So if you don't do that kind of stuff, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. But there is, in some cases, an issue where this happens. So um, that's my dislikes, or what things that I don't like about it. You guys got anything other than what we've already mentioned?
Yeah, I would echo for those of you interested to see a couple of those videos from Shane. They're pretty amazing. He has had quite a workout with Apple on those, and I'll just leave it at that. I think when I've had this thing for a couple months, as you have, Greg, I think this phone is very similar to the 15 for me, with the exception of the action button and the camera control. There's a 48 megapixel camera on the point 0.5 lens on the ultra wide, and really that's kind of the only difference I would say with the cameras. But to me, it's very similar to the 15.
Yeah. And I still have my 15 Pro Max. In fact, it's the camera that I'm using right now. Um, and I find the 16 Pro Max shoots a little cooler in a color temperature than the 15. Either that or vice versa, but one of them is a little cooler than the other. So I found that interesting, even though you're taking a picture of the exact same thing at the exact same time in the same conditions, a whole 9 yards. But when you take a picture of a scene out in the daytime or whatever, there's not that much difference. I think if you look on YouTube, you find some people who have done comparison videos of the two phones and their camera systems, and I think that's I think, who was it? It might have been Alex Armitage. Maybe did one. I forget. But anyway, uh, I remember watching one probably about a week ago, and you'll see a slight difference there. But yeah, the 48 megapixel in the point 0.5, it's a step up. But the problem with that is that it needs to be bright enough in order to actually use all 48 megapixels. If it's not bright enough, then it does pixel binning, for the sensor to gather more light. And then you're left with a 12 megapixel shot. But yeah, in a lot of cases, the 48 on the ultra wide is a good thing. What about you, Dave? You got any negatives before we talk a
Not
little nicer?
really. Well, the one thing to remember is I was coming from the 13 Pro Max, so if I was coming from the 15 Max to 6, 15 Pro Max to 16 Pro Max, I may be underwhelmed because, like you said, there's not a lot of year by year difference. But I'm really coming from the 13. It's such, even though my night modes were good on the 13, and I really haven't noticed a major difference. I haven't taken a lot of star shots. It the camera just seems a good step up better from the 13 to 16, which that's one thing Apple's seeing. That's why they're pushing more for um, subscriptions and iCloud and everything, Apple TV money that way, because most people are not doing year by year updates. They're not even doing every other year. They're stretching 3-4 years out. So if you're coming from a 13 or earlier, it's going to be a major difference. And I think part of the problem with a lot of these reviewers is they're coming from last year's model and they're playing with the new Samsung, and yeah, you're going to have a different feel versus the average person.
Yeah. Um, it's not very often Apple will go backwards in quality of the phone or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, anytime you do upgrade, I think it's a little better. Now I find even going from the 15 Pro Max to the 16 Pro Max, I think it's like this much better. Um, and I've said this before. I got it because I'm still working. I'm not retired yet, and I said to myself, for doing the podcast, as long as I'm doing the show while I'm working, uh, I would, if I can, I'm going to get the new phone every year. This is the third year in a row I've gotten. I had the 14. I went from the 12 Pro Max to the 14 Pro Max, 15, now the 16, and I hope to go to the 17 when it comes out. Um, but if I wasn't doing the podcast, I would not be doing that. I would
Right.
likely go on a 2 year cycle, like I did from way back when I started with the 4S. But because we got to talk about this, and when I was on the 12 Pro Max and you were on the 13 Pro Max, Dave, I really relied on you for a lot of that, a
Right.
lot of this stuff, right? But now that we're on the same page, all three of us, I think we can be, we can really inform our listeners with different perspectives on a lot of things about these phones. So, I'm really glad we're all on the same page with it. Um, I think it's a good thing. So, any last dislikes before we hit on the stuff that we like?
Not really.
No, I
Now,
think Dave kind of nailed it there. Going from a 15 to 16 is negligible, but from a 13 to a 16, you would see a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
improvement, I think.
I would think that even going from the 14 Pro Max to the 16 Pro Max
Yeah.
might be, maybe not as it's obviously not as big of a jump, but I mean it's
hmm
for a photography enthusiast, I would say it's a good jump. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And
it's
you touched on the algorithm, I think, for the cameras, Greg, and I think that they are slightly different in the 16
hmm
relative to the 15. I think the images are coming out a little bit different. I'm not at that scientific level yet, but you made a note, one is warmer than the other. I've seen some videos of YouTubers that have compared the ultra wide 16 to the 15, and the ultra wide in the 16 is performing much better in most conditions. I think with the 48 megapixel. So um, I would say that something that still needs to be investigated.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Somebody needs to do a real deep dive on this stuff, and I want to go back and look at Halide's blog post.
hmm
They always do like the new iPhone, whatever it is that year. They always do a deep dive on the camera system, and of course they've done it on the 16. And Sebastian DeWitt, he's the one that does it. So I kind of skimmed over it when it first came out, but I want to sit down and actually give it a good read one day. But so moving on to what we
Well,
do
Greg,
like.
Greg, real
Yep.
quick. The thing that you brought up about the price,
Oh yeah.
that may change next year.
Oh yeah.
Just depending on, and bring this is about cost of the phones and not politics. But if there are tariffs put on to, you know, China imports into the U.S. of 20%, and of course that won't impact you in Canada, it won't impact Australia, but if someone's importing and having to pay a 20% tax on any imported items, or 30%, or whatever it turns out to be, you know, we all know it's going to get passed on to the consumer. And we know that it's like, well, it's 20%, so we're going to charge 20% more. We know that's not going to be the case, because the company importing it will need to do paperwork. So they got to pay someone to do paperwork. So if they slap on a 20% tariff, the price of the phone could go up 30%, 40% possibly next year. So in that case, it we could have price parity next year. That's one of the, between that as a possibility, and the fact my phone, I was able to get a trade in for $1,000. So my monthly installment plan turned out to be $5 for the cost of the phone. That's the reason I made the jump this year versus next year.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of an unknown right now.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, if they start putting tariffs on things and all this stuff, yeah, it's bound to have an
Mm-hmm.
effect on the consumers, and because like you say, they're gonna trickle it down to the consumers, and we're going to be the ones that'll have to pay up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. Uh, so what we like about the phone, who wants to start there? Dwight, you go first. Tell us what you do like about it. Oh, I can't hear you.
I'm having some weird issues with
There
my
we go.
mic here. Sorry, everybody. Yeah,
That's
there's a
okay. You're
few
good.
aspects of the phone that I really do like. I've found that I don't have a screen protector on it. I did have on my 15 because I was getting little micro scratches, and I'm noticing that whatever they've done to this screen, I don't know if it's a coating. It's very resilient, and I've just noticed not any scratches since I've had it. So I think the reception is better. I think the 5G, I'm not having as many drop calls. I think the connectivity is better. I think, relative to the screen, it's not really noticeable for me year over year from the 15 to the 16. You've got the camera styles, which is kind of fun for, to play around with, but I'm primarily a raw shooter. But I have to admit, I've had a little bit of fun with that. We've got better battery life and a faster processor. So, I think it still is a better phone over the 15. It just, does the benefit outweigh the cost to the consumer?
Yeah, yeah, this is true. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm really noticing is that on shots where the light isn't great, it's not going to night mode as quickly. So I'm doing, because like I said, I shoot with mostly live photos by default, and I'm getting photos where it's pretty dark inside the house, and it's doing it like a normal shot. So the light, either the sensors. I know the sensor has gotten bigger, so either that's happening, or it was a matter of the algorithm or the sensors or who knows what. But the light bringing in the light, the light ability and the ability to without it having to switch modes is a lot better. The other thing I'm using a lot are the photographic styles. I'm using that as if I want to set a mood for a photo, or not do like I'll use Adobe. I'll use a Lightroom Mobile if I have like a high contrast shot and want to deal with a lot of light and dark changes. or really bring out the shadows in a shot. But if I only want to, like I said, make a change on how it looks or set a mood, I'll stay in the Photos app and use the photographic styles. Get the cat over on their side of the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead, Dwight.
yeah. I'm not sure night mode works with live photos.
It doesn't. It doesn't. That's how I
Okay.
know it. That's how I know when I take a photo. It's kind of shocking. It's like this is a dark scene. On my
Mhm.
13, it would have gone to night mode, but I have a live photo still, so I know it's just a normal shot, and it's doing a good job with picking all that up.
Yeah. I noticed that with well, it's actually gotten better with each phone I've had. It always takes it a little more to get into night mode. Like it has to be a little darker each with each phone. I've noticed. I would think, okay, my other phone, it would have taken a night mode shot for this, but this one's not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it went to like the 48 megapixel and just started the whole pixel binning thing. Um, that's when I noticed that uh, you can be in a little darker situation before it has to go to night mode. But that one of my points was what I like about it is the photographic styles. Uh, I find I'm playing with that more than shooting just pro raw. Um, and it's okay because I don't, it's not like every shot I'm taking, I'm thinking, well, what if I wanted to print this? Well, I guess you could say I'm maybe a social media photographer a little bit, because most of the stuff that I do goes on social media, whether it's Glass or Facebook or wherever. Um, but I never really have an intention to print it. But I do always try to go, HEIF max to get a
Mm-hmm.
48 megapixel shot. That way, at least I've got, you know, a good chance of getting a good print if I ever decide to print something. But I really do like the photographic styles. It's really fun to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anything else, you guys, before I hit my little list of likes?
Um, well, like I said, if you look at, and this isn't going to be one of my photos of the week I did, but if you look at a photo I recently did, I think I put it on social media yesterday. It's a photo of a Mustang
Yeah,
outside. That was restyled with photographic styles. So that was all done without, going into another thing or working in another app. Just because of the original shot itself, of course, I'm looking kind of into the sun. It's a black car. So it was very contrasty. So I wanted to basically make almost a stylized photo. So I started it with that first. And then, well, I should say this. And then I put it into Picasso to make it a painted. But honestly, that just gives it more. The actual shade itself was more from photographic styles than anything else.
yeah,
And when we were talking about when we needed to go, because I was just refreshing myself, when I took pictures of my outside lights in our house at night, that was not a night mode shot. There
really.
was there was enough light coming off the lights on the house and reflecting off the house that was just a normal shot. That was a live photo, and that was, you know, it was dark, dark, dark at night, but there was enough lights with, the lights on the bushes that it picked it up fine.
Hmm, interesting. Um,
Go for it, Greg.
well, I was trying to think of, I didn't want to repeat myself, and I found I was going to. It's just that thing about, it waits longer before night mode kicks in. Um, so, but yeah, okay, I got a few things about what I like about the phone, and one is the form factor. Uh, I just think it's a really nice looking phone, and it's not much different than the 15 Pro Max, sure. But the screen size being a little bigger, the smaller bezel,
Hmm.
I was concerned that there would be issues with, my hand wrapping around it too much and then having an effect on the edge of the screen, maybe touching the screen a little bit with my finger when it's wrapped around the phone and then not being able to do anything else with it. But it's 99% of the time it's in a case and that part of the screen is recessed now anyway. The case comes up and over it. So that's not really an issue. But, I just really like the way it looks. And um, I like the color of the desert titanium. Um, I've always in the past I always got the space gray when they started putting them out with the 5S and or maybe the 5, but the 5S was the first one I had, and then I always got space gray up until um, I think I even had the dark like the almost black or whatever it was 8 plus. But then when I went to the 12 Pro Max, I started getting the first new color. Um, so with the Pro Max, it was Pacific Blue, and then with the 14, oh, Dave, you had the
The
Sierra Blue.
Sierra. Yeah.
With the 13 Pro
Hmm.
Max. When the 14 Pro Max came out, I got I think it was called Deep Purple. It was
It was
because
purple. It was
yeah,
purple though. Yeah.
because the other ones are always, there's white, silver, or space gray, and I like getting the standalone color, like the different color. Um, not to show off or nothing, but I just think it's something different than the usual ones that they have, right? Um, and then with the 15 Pro Max, it was the titanium blue, and then now it's desert titanium. So I'm really curious to see what they'll come out with next year for the different color. It's always something new and different. So that's something that I like. I put camera control down for something that I do like, but like I said earlier, I don't use it a lot. I give it a good go when I first got the phone, and I still do use it. If I need to quickly adjust the exposure, say the EV, rather than try to find it on the screen, I'll just swipe over and pick it on the camera control and adjust it that way. I think for me, it's just a little quicker to get to that. And something else that I really like is the default wallpaper on this thing. It is so cool, especially the color of the one for the desert titanium. It's just such a nice default wallpaper that I don't change my wallpaper unless I change a focus mode. I have different focus modes that do different things for different places I go, different situations, and then for like when it hooks up to CarPlay, it might change into a different wallpaper. But in when I'm just in normal use of it, it's always on the default one because I just think it looks so cool. I did that with the 15 Pro Max too. Um, and the last thing that I could say that I really like about it really isn't the phone itself, but it's the silicone case from Apple. I see Dave, you have one too. Um, it's it has a nice feel to it. It has a camera control integrated button, I guess you could say, on it. And they say it's guaranteed to never fade or turn yellow or whatever. So, it's just a nice case. Stupid expensive, but nice. So that's all I got with my likes. What about you guys? Anything else that you liked about it before we move on to a different part of this conversation?
Well, I do want to mention Scott Baker asked if you hold the phone with the hashtag not a button on the bottom, does it still work as a camera control hashtag not a button? And I just tested it, and yes, it does. It does not matter how you hold the phone. In fact, I've used this as a trying to take a selfie, which I know, oh, selfie, whatever, with me and Ruth, because I'm trying to hold the phone up to get that. You never want to take a shot from down below, of course, but you
Right.
want to take it kind of more up. And when I'm holding the phone, I can't hold the phone with one hand and hit the button on the screen. My hand just doesn't work that way. And trying to do it with a timer on the watch, you hit it, you hit the watch, you have to put your hand this way, move. It's actually
Yeah.
a really great location if you're just trying to do a literally like a selfie from above. If you're at least my thumb's like right there. So occasionally I do selfies like when I'm at races. I'll do it in front of the start line or in front of the finish line, or like waiting for things to start. I'm in a crowd, I'm looking up, I'll take a picture. So it makes it a little bit easier because it is a little bit bigger. It's actually lighter than my 13 Pro Max.
Really?
Stainless versus titanium.
Oh yeah.
The titanium, even though it's a little bit bigger of a phone, it's small enough that I mean, it's light. The difference in size does not make up for the difference in material, and titanium is a lot lighter. That's why it's used in aircraft. It's also a pain in the butt to manufacture. It is. It's a total pain in the butt to manufacture. So, stainless is easier to manufacture, but and also real quick, the case I got it is actually off of Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Just because I'm not going to pay $50, $60 for a case.
Okay.
And basically it's clear. It's clear. It's got the bumpers on it. So this isn't silicon. It's like I don't know. It's some kind of rubbery plastic, and it's got the little bumpers. If I drop it or when I drop it, it's supposed to give you a little bit more protection by having a little air gap here.
Right.
Whether it
Okay.
does it or not, who knows? But yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Well, it looked to me like just off the cuff, it just kind of looked like the
honestly,
silicone one from Apple.
it looks
Yeah.
just like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you were
Yeah,
probably
Greg,
the
I've got
smarter one.
something. I've got
Yep.
something. I think, if you go on Reddit and you look at people's different iPhone setups now with the customizable icons and stuff, there's some really cool setups that
Hmm.
people are doing with their icons. I mean, you can create any colors and styles, and you can go out to third-party apps and do some really cool stuff. I'm finding it all on Reddit. I haven't
Hmm.
gone down that rabbit hole yet, but I think this new update that we have right now gives us that opportunity to kind of move outside of just the standard icons. Um, my case is a Nomad. Uh, it's a leather case, so let me see if I can
Yep.
get that in there. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. Has nice camera protection.
Yep. That's cool. Yeah. Nomad. They make some nice stuff for sure. Um, okay. So I guess the last thing I want to ask is any buyer's remorse? For me personally, no, I'm happy with it. Even though I have the 15 Pro Max, but again, it's that whole thing about while I'm still working before I retire, which hopefully soon, but I have no idea when. But as long as I can, and because of the show, I will try to get a new one every year. But I mean, I don't regret buying it. Even though there's some negative things that we've talked about. But what about you guys? Are you happy that you bought it?
Yeah, I'm on the annual upgrade program. It's just my hobby, so I'm willing to invest the money while I can. Um, so yeah, I have no buyer's remorse whatsoever.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
about you, Dave?
I mean, the only remorse I have is originally I was trying to hold off to the 17. Just because, like you said, they made the size a little bit bigger. There's a couple changes, but it's not a big major change, which may happen next year. Of course, with the rumors with the not iPad, iPhone 17 Air is what they're calling it, which is going to be thin, one camera, you know, that may be the sparkly, pretty one that doesn't have the full features of the Pro Max. So, um, who knows? But right now I'm happy I bought it. I do not have remorse at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it's a pretty good jump from the 13 for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope we didn't deter anybody from wanting to get it if it's something that you've been looking forward to, and just haven't made that jump yet. You know, I mean, if you have a 14 or a 15 Pro or Pro Max, and you really don't need to have the latest and greatest, then don't even think about it. You know, don't spend your money. Wait till next year and see what it comes up with. Because like I said, if I was not doing this show, I'd be probably still on the 15. Or actually, I probably wouldn't have had the 15 because I had the 14 Pro Max, and they probably would have skipped the 15 and then went to this one. But if you're a real serious photography enthusiast, or even the video, like the video side of it, we didn't even touch on that. But I mean, the video is wow, it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really serious about that kind of thing, and you've been thinking about getting it, you know, maybe don't hesitate. But you know, don't blame us if you want to, you know, spend all that money because these are expensive. But you know, it's a good camera. It's a good camera system. There's no doubt about it. They take darn good pictures. That was a Canadian accent. You see that doubt? No doubt about it.
You,
Somebody's bound to say something about that, I'm sure.
we get that going
Probably
about you
Shane.
around.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Shane Mawson will pick that one out for sure. But no, it's a darn nice device. Yeah, sure, it has its little qualms or little faults, but overall, in general, I would say it's one of the nicest phones on the market. You know, and I mean, there's a lot of nice phones out there. The Samsungs, the Huawei's, all that. They all make darn good phones. But you know, if you're thinking about it, that's what the whole point of this conversation was, is to say, okay, this is what we like about it. These are our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're not trying to say yes or no or whatever. But if you've just been thinking about it, you're on the fence, hopefully we can give you a little insight on helping you make that decision. We don't want to make that decision for you, but just help you with it. So anyway, all right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go on to our recent photos. So we will start with Dwight and this one here.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Greg. Yeah, this was taken in RAW. This is down at the Newport Pier. So it came out of camera undeveloped. So I developed this in a kind of an interesting way. I had the raw image, and then I put 5 brightness adjustments on this within 5 different brightness tonal values. So I did all the contrast that way. So it was a little bit different than using curves, but I just kind of like the scene a little bit. I mean, you got some footprints kind of leading in to this guy walking along the beach, and then the 3 birds, kind of like a boundary for his walk. And it was just an interesting day weather-wise, and I believe that was my birthday. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, this one
Happy
was,
belated.
the weather was nice where we were, but you can see the rain off in the distance, which never hit us that day. But I like the soft image of it. It's not over processed. Um, yeah. What do you guys think?
Dave, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I think it's like you said, the way you have the different layers, and there's just enough color where it's not, you see, and this is, we know, and someone may scream me this, we know Samsung tends to over boost the color to make it hit. And you can just see the person's wearing reddish orange outfit, but the fact you just have this the ocean being that silvery look. It has that winter feel to it. I really like it. Like you said, in the birds, it's kind of having that boundary effect since they're kind of the way they're spaced out.
Yeah. It's interesting, Dave. Good observation on the subject there. I wasn't getting any color out of that person until I isolated him and specifically brought those colors out.
Mm.
So he was really dark for me, and I thought
Mm-hmm.
that I remembered, I believe he was wearing some red sweatpants or something, and
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get that color out a little bit. So I think I was successful there. But yeah, I think as you mentioned, it's
Yeah.
pretty muted. It's not overcooked, and that's kind of the way I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the like Dave touched on the silvery look of the water. Almost looks like tinfoil, and um, the muted tones of this image makes me think that that's probably how it looked right to your eye. Like it's not one of these images like the landscape images where you tend to oversaturate and really put an artistic flair to it. Um, it looks to me like there's no vignette, but there may be a slight one. I'm not sure. But I, all the elements, like Dave said too, the layering, um, and what one of the first things that caught my eye was the three birds, almost evenly spaced out from one side to the other. I thought that was kind of a cool capture. But yeah, I really like this, and yes, Mr. Baker in the chat room, look at that level horizon line.
You know, one of the tonal values that I had out of those five just picked out the you see the whitewash there in the foreground, just the little specks of white.
Oh yeah,
Just picked out those, and I was able just to boost those up just a tad, and it kind of brought them out a little bit, which I thought was cool.
yeah, it really worked well. All right, well that's a as they say, a real banger image for sure.
Oh, thank you.
So this one next, Dave.
Sure. That's actually taken. Um, and I did do some adjustments on this one. When I looked at the sky, looked at the tree here, just I think it was over a building, and the way that the little bit of leaves that are left on there just made it look lacy, or like a like if you see more of it like an old fashioned lacy pattern or a lace doily or something you would see. And I did do some cleanup here. I think there was a light pole I removed on the right, and I did some adjustments to make it more silvery and remove any color. But I just like the way the tree, the way it came up, and just the like I said, the lacy feel to it. Especially since like for me and Greg, pretty much all the leaves are gone, and all pretty much all the colors gone from all the vegetation.
Yeah, Dave, I like the symmetry of the tree,
Mm-hmm.
how the tree in the foreground kind of builds from the left and goes up to the middle of the photograph, and then the tree actually kind of stops a little past three-quarters of the way over, and then that background leafless
Mm-hmm.
tree kind of picks it up and drives the rest of the symmetry. And I like the muted kind of gray tones and the contrast, I think, between the clouds and the subjects. I think it's interesting.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah, I was thinking that too about the symmetry and how the background tree kind of carried it on. Yeah, it really works well, and you wouldn't know that you had removed a hydropole. Did you use the cleanup tool in
I
photos?
did. Yep.
Yeah, well, it did a really good
I'm
job.
noticing that's doing a pretty good job,
Yeah,
and it's just so convenient because it's you don't have to go out or use an extension or anything. It's all right there.
yep, yeah. Uh, so is there any color in this at all, Dave, or did you kind of
Um,
extract it all out?
I there's very little,
Yeah.
very little. Actually, I'm actually looking at it now and kind of going back to the uncropped one. I mean the original. Very little color. I did the sky had a light bluish gray that I pretty much got rid of. And I actually, this is another one where I used the photographic styles. I used a cool rose one.
Oh, okay.
Just to give it that, just again, not a major change, just a little bit of a highlight change.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's cool. You know, Matt Hoffman come up with this. As far as I know, it was his catchphrase. It's stick season.
Hmm.
So this is stick season with a few little hints of leaves left on it. But you're right. You and I are pretty much leafless in our landscape now, and uh, I wonder what it would look like with the color taken right off. The sky, you could still see a hint of color, I guess, in the
Hmm.
sky. But I just wonder if it would make any difference. But I mean, I personally I don't think it needs it. I just kind of wondered about that. But no, it's a pretty cool image. And this is what you could do, folks. This time of year is stuff like this to make
Hmm.
for an interesting photograph, because it's not like we have the fall colors to work with anymore. They're definitely gone. But um,
And
so
I don't know
moving
what a
from
hydropole is.
It like a power.
Okay.
I call them telephone pole.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's just different terminology for different
Yeah.
parts of the
Hmm.
world, I guess. Yeah, utility pole, hydro
Yeah,
pole,
yeah, yeah.
power line. Yeah. Um, so going from one stick season to the next. Oops, hang on. There we go. Uh, this was taken yesterday, I believe, and because we have snow now, our some of us in Canada are cursed with this stuff. And that, you know what? About 2 or 3 hours from here, they have probably a good meter of snow, or maybe 3 or 4 feet of
Hmm.
snow. Like some people got hit real bad, but this is all we got. I would say there's maybe 3 or 4 inches, um, and that's about it. But I was out and I wanted to kind of go to this spot here before I went home, because I knew there was a river and I knew there'd be reflections and with the clouds and all that stuff. And I thought, it might make for a decent picture with the snow. And the sun was starting to set, and I just wanted to see, if I'd have stayed maybe another half an hour, I might have got a little more color in the sky, maybe even in the clouds. But it was bloody cold, and I had one of the dogs with me, and I didn't want to leave her sitting in there
Well,
too
yeah.
cold. So away I went home. Um, but I just wanted to capture the reflections in the river, and just what I was kind of trying to get the composition. I saw that lump in the lower left hand corner, which is probably a
Mm.
plant of some kind, or like a tree or a mound of dirt or something. This is a spot where a lot of people will, you know, load their kayaks in and out of the river. But so I'm assuming that's just a lump, or maybe it's a rock. I don't even remember what it was before the snow fell, but because I've been here before. But I wanted to keep that in to give it some foreground interest, and then obviously it kind of layers back into the sky. But I took it in Pro Raw with I believe it was on my 15 Pro Max with the reflex 2 times lens on it, and 48 megapixel, and just I believe I edited in Photobator, and that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I also like the reflection on the in the lake where you can see both the trees and the sky in it, and you can and even like you said, the sky doesn't have a lot of color, but you can see the blue of the sky in the lake itself.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
that's what I was after. Yeah,
yeah, and honestly, snow is so hard to photograph well, just because you have that blue tinge to everything when your eyes don't see it there.
yeah. I struggle with that a little bit on this one, because I wanted the sky to
Hmm.
like, I wanted to saturate the sky a bit, but I didn't really want the snow to go with it. So um, I tried to put a mask on in Photomator.
Hmm.
That's the one thing about Photomator; it doesn't do as well as Lightroom as do the sky. It does it okay, but right in the center, on the where the trees meet the sky, there's that soft cloud there, it didn't select that as part of the sky, and I wasn't going to bother with adding to the mask and all that stuff, so I didn't go that route. I think I could have done a little more with the saturation, but I got to the point where the snow was about as blue as I wanted it to get, and then I said, okay, that's it, I'm done. So, but yeah, it's I kind of struggle with that, but
Yeah,
I made
Greg,
it
I think
work.
that's the challenge with the iPhone photos in the snow. It always gives kind of a blue cast. Um, and I think you were this. So this isn't a direct representation of the scene. Then you would say it was a little bit warmer, at least in the foreground.
No, it is fairly close, Dwight.
Okay,
It may be a little, maybe a little bluer than what it was, but I didn't want to take it too blue.
sure.
It. Yeah, you're right. Snow is tricky. I tend to usually just overexpose a little bit when it comes to the snow. And yes, and when the skies are blue, it really does reflect on the snow. Overcast days, not so much, but yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
what I like about it is you mentioned that lump, if you will, here in the foreground. I mean, that kind of grabs your attention, and then you're trying to figure out what that is, and then you look up and you see the river, which draws you into the rest of the photo, and then the reflection of the trees kind of follows along with the river. So
Hmm.
I think it's an interesting composition.
Yeah, thanks. I took one here back when autumn was just starting to flourish. Um, Slightly different composition, and I think I might have used. I think I used the 5X, um, and I used the photographic styles and all that stuff. And I thought, what it would be like to compare them, but actually there was really no comparison because I was standing in a different place. I had different foreground interest and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's my first one. Um, Dwight, here's another good one from you.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, this was another raw photo that I developed. Per my exercise the other a couple podcasts ago, I isolated the foreground and the sky, and my intent was to develop it as close as I could to I remember the scene, which is always a challenge. I found that it was a decent composition with the rocks kind of on the left, kind of leading the viewer in. I did color grade this a little bit at the end just for a little bit of fun, and I used a curves adjustment where I worked within the RGB values, and then I also went into the different colored curves as well to kind of try to fine tune um, the blues and the reds and the greens by using curves only. Um, there is a little bit of a vignette on this. I usually do put a vignette on my photos, but I think vignettes, unless you're doing them for art or some type of um, you know fun or that type of thing, in my opinion, shouldn't necessarily be seen as a vignette. So I always like to have a real smooth transition there. But yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful morning, and again, it's to me, it's softer. It's not overly sharpened, and that's why I like shooting in raw.
Yeah, what do you think, Dave? Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Um, I'm actually looking at it on my phone to get a better image than looking on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the breaking of the waves coming in. And like you said, how the flow and looking on the one, like I said, looking at it on a mobile device like a phone or an iPad allows you to zoom in and see a lot more detail, especially if you don't have a great computer screen. Like I'm going off a work computer. So the screen is it's good for work, but it's not high quality photographic good. And just like you said, making it where it's sharp enough but it's not fake sharp. Especially like the trees on the the trees on the hill, where, like you said, doing it raw, you can work on that. And because if you let Apple do it, and this is because Apple's hitting 90% of the people 90% of the time, as we said before, they'll make everything sharp because that's what most people want. But I love the fact that we're able, if you want to do the extra, or you're doing a lot more steps than I would do,
Hmm.
Dwight, and get that look to it. And like I said, just this the kind of the how everything kind of flows with the horizon there, and just the little details like the rocks right there where the water hits. It's just really
Yeah,
nice
thanks.
image.
Yeah, my experience with shooting Pro Raw here is with the noise, with the sharpness and the noise reduction. If we zoomed in on the green um, bushes, if you will, on the hill, they'd look really gummy, almost painted.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a little bit of noise in those, and there's detail and noise. So
yeah. That's the nice thing about shooting Bay or Raw. Um, you know, you breaking the rules here is it really works because you got the horizon line basically right in the center. Um, but it works because you have enough sky and enough interest in the foreground to make it work, and it really you might not even realize that it's right at the middle of the frame, but the detail in the image is crazy. Like I can't get over how much detail you can get in a 12 megapixel Bayer raw file on these cameras. It just blows me away. Um, and with what you can do in editing, and folks, if you're hearing the show for the first time, Dwight talks about his editing. Was either the last show or 2 shows ago? I think it was the last show, um, where he went through an edit, and you can follow that on the YouTube video. It's not on the audio podcast, but because it's something that you have to watch, so it's on the YouTube video for the last show, and it's crazy what you do with these, Dwight. I just it blows me away the detail you can get. And if we were to zoom in on the the rock face or the face of that cliff or whatever, I'm sure you would see a lot more detail again. But I love the subtle pastel tones of the sky, and again, to me, I wasn't there obviously, but I have a feeling this is very, very close to what it looked like. You know, with the color and everything else. And I this one I can see that there is a slight vignette, but what I like about a vignette is that it draws your attention toward, the brighter parts of the image. Um, because that's what you want them to see. Is around the edges, it doesn't really, not that it doesn't matter, but it's not the focal point of the frame usually. It's usually something around in the middle or close to it. And you've done it justice by putting just a slight vignette on it. To me, the focal point is, like Dave says, the water breaking in the wave, and but my eye keeps getting drawn to the sky with these colors, and then probably just the right amount of cloud cover and the way the sun's hitting the clouds. Just a very welcoming image for sure.
yeah, I appreciate it. In that lower right corner, I think I closed that off a little bit with a little bit of burning. I did a burning
Mm,
layer there. I felt that it was a little bit too bright. I didn't want the eye to go there, so I wanted it to immediately skip over that and then try to work the viewer over to the left side in the center.
yeah, for me it works because I go to that part of the frame, but my eye immediately goes right back up towards the water. So
Yeah. Well, thank
yeah,
you.
job well done. So Dave, this is your excuse me. This is your newest cat
Yeah, this
experiencing
is
the tree.
Daisy for the first time. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is while I was putting up the tree and putting it together. And you can tell there's nothing on the tree. We just kind of put the pieces together, turned the light on, and she decided to climb up it. I mean, she's 10 months old, she's a kitten. And this is the one advantage in my mind of live photos is that the photo that the camera selected was a different shot out of this. It may have been a little clearer overall, but I was able to, use that live slider and get her right when she's poking out with her legs out. And luckily, she has not tried to climb since we have ornaments and it's completely there. She has played with some of the balls that are hanging, but she likes to lay underneath it. Her and our older cat Rosie, they like to lay underneath it. So, but I just love that. Like I said, I saw her starting to do that, and honestly, this is where the camera control kind of helps in terms of I knew there was going to be a picture. So I was able to get the camera open up quickly, and I still used the button on the screen, but I was able to open up the camera quickly without having to look and fumble, so it was ready to go when when it was happening.
And what can I say
And
about Daisy? What a cutie. As
oh,
a
she is.
cat owner myself, I know at least in the first 2 to 3 years, they will go directly into the tree
Mm-hmm.
and up it, and then you have to put the ornaments back on the next day. What I like about this one is you've got Daisy almost kind of over into the onto that first third from the left, looking off the screen, which creates kind of a mystery as to what Daisy's looking at. Now, if she was over on the right 2/3, it would be you'd kind of see what maybe is a she. I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, she. Yeah.
What she'd be kind of looking at here. It makes me wonder, what's off screen there. And I like the contrast between the white in the tree and the different shade of white in her fur.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the lights and stuff in there are incorporated nicely. I think it's a nice, cute photo.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, the first thing that I thought of when I saw this was how much improved the camera is over like the 13 Pro. The 13 Pro Max that you had took great pictures, and there's no
Mm-hmm.
doubt about it. But I see an improvement with this, with the detail in the cat's fur and the whiskers and that sort of thing. And for being a live photo, uh, I mean, the detail is really, really good. Um, when I first looked at it, I thought, maybe the cat should be a little more to the right, looking into the frame a bit. But Dwight, when you mentioned that, looking out of frame, with that sense of mystery, I think that works too. Um, it just makes you wonder, okay, what's she looking at? Is it another cat in another part of the tree? Or, is it Dave or Ruth holding an ornament, getting ready to put it on and she's getting ready to attack it? Just, you know, your mind kind of races. What's this cat looking at? But, again, and the nice thing about the live photos is that you can change the key photo
Mm-hmm.
and I can't imagine why it would pick anything different than this as the key photo in the frame. But
Hmm.
uh, you know, uh, and the dynamic range of this camera too. You've got the bright LED bulbs, and then
Mm-hmm.
you've got a softer or like a more. I don't want to say gray because it's not a gray tree, but the tree is not as bright as the lights, and
Right.
that dynamic range that it captures right down to the black in her fur and all that stuff, and the detail in her ears even. It just does such a good job.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely a cute picture and almost something that you could put on a Christmas card.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's not over sharpened. I mean, there's a soft nature to it, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So next we got mine. This was a frosty morning after work, um, before we had snow, and so I get off work at 7 in the morning, and sunrise was, I think it was sometime between 7:20 and 7:30. So that's when the sun actually hit the horizon, and this was just like a week ago or so, and I seen the clouds starting to light up, and I'm walking in the parking lot, and I thought, okay, hopefully by the time I just get around the corner on this other street or this other road, it's like basically it's the last road in the city limits before you're in the country. And I said, I hope I don't miss the color in the clouds. Well, I got there and they did not disappoint. But I didn't know these cattle were here. So when I saw them up on this kind of on a hill, I thought, oh, this is going to be perfect. I have a foreground interest in the frame, not just, a hill and the clouds. So I parked the truck, I walked across the road, and it was some cold out. It was probably -5 Celsius. It was pretty cold, hence the frost. But these cattle, they were just kind of moseying around. Some were laying down, some were walking around. There was calves there. So I probably shot about 15 pictures of them. And what I really liked was, that I was able to get the detail out of the foreground. And you could see the cattle there. I really had to open up the shadows to get that. And the sky, I didn't have to do much to it other than I maybe saturated it a little bit. But and the nice thing about Photomator, where I did the edit, is it has that mask where it can select the sky, and it did a little better job in this one than my last one because it really separated the foreground from the sky, and I was able to just saturate the sky and not these cows. And then basically, I think I picked another sky mask, inverted it just to pick the cattle, and I brought the shadows up and didn't affect the sky. So, um, but yeah, I thought it was just a cool thing with all these cows, and they were just sitting there minding their own business. What do you guys think, Dave?
Sorry about that. Had a tickle in my throat. No, I think it's great. And like you said, anytime you can get animals, especially like out there, not they're just out there doing their thing, probably not feeling the cold. You know, you're cold. They're like, whatever. I'm built for this stuff, and just hanging out on the farm and just the like you said, sunrise and sunset are those, especially when you get the deep saturation colors like this. This is a, if you wait 2 minutes, it's gone.
Yeah,
And so you, like you said, I know the feeling of, oh, this is going to be a good shot, but I gotta take it now. And I
yeah.
just love how it turned out there.
No, thanks.
Yeah, Greg, that's nice. So the first thing I thought of when I saw this was, you know, would I raise the shadows a little bit on the herd of cattle? And I thought about it for a second. It's like, no, this is a burner. My eyes are going to go right to the sunrise. I'm going to analyze that, and then I'm going to wonder, what is that? And at the bottom of the screen, and it's really kind of cool that they aren't the subject, right? The sky is the subject, but this is just another interesting aspect of the photo to look at. And I think that if you brought the shadows up, and that would maybe take away from the subject a little bit. But no, I love taking sunrise and sunset photos. I haven't done it this year, and I'm missing my window, so I have to get down there and do that. But no, this is nice. That's a great burner, and just the right amount of contrast, I think, in those clouds. And I think he did a good job on the saturation.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I use the texture slider in Photomator to get a little bit out of the clouds and also just a very slight bit of clarity. But I didn't want to overdo it. So, I thought about really like putting the cloud or the clouds, putting the cattle, really taking down the shadows and almost making it a
Hmm.
silhouette. But I thought there was just enough interest, like you wouldn't really know it was a frosty morning had I done that. You wouldn't be able to see the frost. So I elected to bring out the shadows, bring up the shadows a little bit, and I think I put a small radial mask or radial gradient mask on uh, very bottom coming up a little bit, just so that it wasn't too bright. I didn't want it to be too bright because I didn't want to take away from the sky. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, just
Yeah,
played
very
around with a
nice.
bit, and I might not be done with it yet. I might go back to it and see what else I could do with it.
Yeah, and also if you went silhouette, because there's a few cows in the very, very front that would be hidden.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
having that extra layer, I think, makes a big difference. And like you said,
yeah,
the ground does have, it isn't just flat ground either. It looks like there's a little bit of undulation, and like you said, with the light, about a little bit of frost. You don't want to lose that either.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, there's like a gal that I work with. She was driving by as I was out shooting this, and she goes, "Oh, that's really cool." Excuse me. She said, "Oh, that's really cool." She took a couple pictures with her phone just from her truck, and then the way she went. So then the next night we went when we were back in again. Uh, we come across each other, and I said, "Oh, you want to see those pictures? Yeah, let's have a look." So she was really excited about the fact that I got the frost in it. Um, had I not processed it that way, then she might not have got that reaction, right? So, and she's a farmer, so I think she was kind of excited that I got the frost in the picture, and she thought it looked pretty cool.
You know what I'm really
All right.
bad at? When I see people taking pictures with their iPhone, I always go up to them and I start talking to them about it. And
Oh
they
yeah.
all are super interested. And if I'm with my family, it drives them crazy because now I'm talking iPhone photography. I'm playing with their settings. I'm giving them hints on what they need to do to get better photos. And, I've got a wife and son behind me tapping their feet half the time. But
Yep.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me. YouTube listeners, in case you haven't noticed, I have a bit of a cold still. But anyway, so that's our recent photos. We hope you've enjoyed them. And again, the audio listeners, they'll know that they'll be on their screen when we're talking about them. And I failed to mention that at the beginning, but I think at this point we've been doing it enough. I don't think I even have to mention it anymore. Um, but yeah, I think we got a pretty good selection, nice variety, uh, and can't wait to see what we can come up with next week. So I guess on that note, we'll call it a show. And thanks, guys. Always appreciate your company, and thanks to everybody in the YouTube chat
Mm-hmm.
for playing along. And thanks, Will Newcomb, all the way from China, and Scott
Yeah.
Baker from Nova Scotia. And who else we got there? Todd Weiner, well, Weiner, sorry, Weiner, Maurice Backley, and anybody else new? None that I could see. But
Yeah, thanks
you
for
know,
joining, everyone.
Oh, most definitely.
yeah, yeah. So, um, no idea what we're gonna do on the next show, as usual, but I've been working on getting Alex Fox booked for an interview. He is the developer of Mood Camera, which is a really cool camera app. Really cool, and so that is actually booked for February. So watch for that coming up. As far as anything else coming up, nothing concrete yet, but we're always trying to find interesting things to
Mm-hmm.
talk about and show you guys. So I guess on that note, I guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
Have a great one,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.